Read and discover Level 4 Machines Then and Now by Robert Ewing, Oxford University Press. Introduction. Machines make our life easier. We use them to do work, to travel, to communicate, and to have fun. Some machines are simple, with only one or two parts. Other machines are complex, with many parts that work together. What are the machines below called? What do we do with these machines? Which of these machines do you use? What other machines do you use? Now, read and discover more about machines. Chapter 1. The First Machines. People invented the first machines a long time ago. They were simple tools made of stone, wood, or bone. About 2 million years ago, people made stone eggs with wooden handles. They used these tools to cut woods. People also used stone and animal bone to make knives and arrows. To shoot their arrows, they used bow made with long pieces of wood. People used simple levers to move heavy objects like rocks. They put one end of a long stick of wood under a big rock, and they put a small rock under the stick. When they pushed on the other end of the stick, the big rock moved. About 7,000 years ago, people start farming for food. They invent new machines like plows and use animals to work easier. Some farmers use long levers to get water from rivers. They also build canals to get water for their plants. About 5,000 years ago, people started making metal tools. These tools were better than stone or bone tools. Chapter 2. Round and Round. The wheel is one of the most important inventions in history. About 5,500 years ago, potters used the first wheel to make clay pots. They put wet clay on a wooden wheel. Then they turned the wheel to make a nice round pot. Before people had wheels to move heavy objects, they used rollers. The rollers were made from tree trunks. Then people made carts and chariots with wooden wheels. They connect the wheels with a long bar called an axle. Today, there are lots of machines with wheels. We can see wheels on cars, bicycles, and skateboards. There are also wheelchairs for people who can walk easily. Can you think of more machines that have wheels? The London Eye is a very big wheel. It's 135 meters high. You get a great view of London from the top. Chapter 3. Ramps and Cranes. Ramps are useful because they help us lift objects more easily. More than 5,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians used ramps to build pyramids. The Great Pyramid at Giza is the biggest pyramid in the world. It's 138 meters high. Then the Egyptians used rollers to move large blocks of stone up the ramps. They need lots of walkers because the blocks were very heavy. About 2,500 years ago, the ancient Greeks used big cranes to build temples. The cranes were made of wood, and they had many ropes and little wheels called pulleys. First, the workers tied a rope to a block of stone. Then, they put the rope around the pulley. They pulled the rope and lift the block. The work was easier with cranes, so the Greek didn't need as many workers as the Egyptian. We use cranes today to lift very heavy objects. The biggest type of crane is the gantry crane. Water, Chapter 4. Water and Wind. Some machines use energy from nature. Water mills use energy from flowing water thousands of years ago. People built water mills next to the river. They used the water mills to make flour from grain. Then they used the flour to make bread and cakes. Water mills have a big wheel on the outside. The river turns a wheel, then the wheel turns an eggs out inside the water mill. The egg turns a round millstone that breaks the grain into flour. Windmills use energies from the wind. Hundreds of years ago, people started using windmills to make flour. Windmills have long arms with big sails. The wind pushes the sails and turns the arms. Inside the mill, an axle turns a millstone. Windmills are useful in places that don't have big rivers, but they only work when it's windy. Today, we use windmills to make electricity. Modern windmills are called wind turbines. Chapter 5. Telling the Time. In the past, people told the time in many ways. Thousands of years ago, people used sundials. Sundials have a pointer that made a shadow to tell the time. A sundial only worked on sunny days. Some people also use water clocks. Simple water clocks have two pots. Water flows from the top pot to the bottom pot to tell the time. Later, people use sand clocks. This clock has two glass bubbles with sand inside them. About 1,000 years ago, people invented mechanical clocks with metal gears. Some mechanical clocks have a pendulum to move the parts. Others have metal springs. Today, many clocks are digital. They show the time with only numbers. Digital clocks work with electricity. They usually have electric cords or batteries. Computers and cell phones have digital clocks, and many people wear digital watches. Chapter 6. Engines and Energy. For thousands of years, people used animals to do work. Then inventors built steam engines. These engines heat water to make steam. The energy from the steam made other machines work. The first steam engines usually used fuels like wood, coal, or oil. People use steam engines to power vehicles like trains and boats. Many factories use steam engines to power their machines. This was the beginning of modern industry. Then, people invent new machines that use fuels like oil, gasoline, and diesel. Now, we use these engines for vehicles like cars, buses, planes, or helicopters. They can carry enough fuel to travel a long distance. Today, most vehicles use gasoline or diesel as fuel. Some vehicles use biodiesel made from plant materials. There are also electric cars that use energy from batteries. Some vehicles, like bicycles, use human energy. Electric cars are good for the environment. They don't produce smoke or pollutions. Chapter 7. Flying Machines. Today, we can fly all over the world, but 200 years ago, planes didn't exist. Some people flew in hot air balloons. These balloons had no engines, so they were slow and hard to control. Later, people invented airships. They had engines and propellers, so they were faster and easier to control. In 1903, Wilbur and Overly Wright invented the first plane. It was made of wood and carried one person. The first flight only lasts for 12 seconds. 4 years later, a French inventor named Paul Camus flew one of the first helicopters. He stayed in the air for about 20 seconds. Today, there are many types of planes. Some planes have propellers and others have jet engines. Some planes carry freight and others carry passengers. Some modern plane carries more than 850 passengers. Helicopters are very useful. They can transport food and medicine in emergencies. They can also rescue people and take them to hospital. The Jan H-4 is the smallest helicopter in the world. It carries one person. Chapter 8. Communications. For a long time, people send messages on paper. Then, people invent new machines to communicate more quickly and easily. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. It transmits sounds through wires. In 1895, Guglielmo Marconi invented the radio. It transmits sounds with no wires. In 1926, John Logie Baird invented a way to transmit images and show them on a screen. It was the first television, but it only showed black and white images. Then, 18 years later, inventors made a television that showed images in color. Communication today are very different. We can talk on cell phones that transmit sounds with no wires. We can send text messages, photos, and videos. Many cell phones are also music players, and they can connect to the internet. With modern television, we can receive programs by satellite. We can also watch DVDs. Some televisions are very big. There is a television in Japan that is 11 meters tall and 66 meters long. Some modern televisions can be almost as thin as paper. Chapter 9. Computers. People invented the first computer more than 60 years ago. Those computers were very different from computers today. One of the first computers was called ENIAC. It was built in about 1946. ENIAC was big and heavy. It weighed about 30 metric tons. It was also expensive. It cost about $500,000. Over the next 40 years, computers became smaller and cheaper. From about 1980, people started using computers at home. Then, in 1989, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web, or the Web. Computers today are very useful. You see images on a monitor and you use a keyboard to type words. You use a mouse to move the cursor and click on buttons. To connect the internet, you use a modem. A modern computers also have speakers so you can listen to music or watch movies. You need a printer to print documents, and to play computer games you need a joystick. What other things can computers do? Chapter 10: Big and Small. With modern technology, we can build machines that are very big or very small. The cruise ship Oasis of the Seas is one of the world's largest passenger vehicles. It's 65 meters high and 360 meters long. It carries 5,400 passengers. It has restaurants, shops, cinemas, and 3 swimming pools. The Baga 288 is a mining machine. It's 96 meters high and 240 meters long. It's one of the world's heaviest land vehicles. It weighs 13,500 metric tons. The Denso Macro car is one of the world's smallest machines. It's about 4.8 millimeters long and 1.7 millimeters high. It's smaller than a finger. The car can move, but its top speed is only 180 meters per hour. In the future, people will use micro machines like this to repair other machines from the inside. Scientists want to build micro machines called nanobots. We won't need a microscope to see them. Doctors will use them to help people who are sick. The nanobots will walk inside their body.